I thought I should bring this up very early. And it talks about the rod of power. I listened to Alan Feldman, the Grandmaster of Vedanta. He talks about how Paul teacher translated in 1971, and there was no one ready to be handed the rod of power. So it was under the custody of Rebbe Zataz, and that neither Darwin nor Harold had it, even though they claimed they did. And then he talked about their flip-flopping, which completely destroyed what Paul had created. And I said, yes, this chimes with exactly what you've said about the two of them. Then this is where he peels off. He said when the time was, when someone was ready and prepared to take the rod of power, so it was handed over to him by Rebbe Zataz in a ceremony attended by the masters, and he has continued with the original, unadulterated teachings of Paul Twitchell. So my question is, can there be two holders of the rod of power? Or can it be split among two persons? Or duplicated? Duane?
Oh, this is a question for the court jester. That's for sure. First of all, okay, there is no more rod of power. This is the funny thing. This is what those people who think they have it, there's no such thing. See, all that was gone away with, that whole idea. See, again, it's like the hospital and the White House. It looks like a good idea. It looks good. Those are ideas. Buildings are ideas. Everything here is ideas. It comes from an idea. Imagination, idea, whatever, and then into this formula. And I'm not going to say this or that. He has the right to decide whatever he wishes, but realistically, according to the isness life is and the real guides, there's no such thing. When I came in, they said, change the whole idea of it. And I get that. That's fine. That's what I did. That's where I called it the New Wave is, because it's not that anymore. There's no such thing. They have the idea. Like Joni has the corporation. She has the idea. She has the business, one-dimensional business. That's it. That's all she has. She thought Harry had the rod of power. See, it's about power. You see? When Paul's time was here, he called it the rod of power, but it's not that. But he called it that. You might say because of the situation as it came through, and it's interesting during those times that it was Star Wars comes out, it's called the Force or whatever, and all these things, the Force, the Source, and all these things. It's all fine. These are ideas. It's only what life itself agrees to, not what people here decide. There is a difference. And so I cannot say what Alan experienced. Maybe he did that. Maybe the guides did put on that performance, or maybe it was the Cal that put on that performance. And it seems like somebody put on this performance for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people out there saying they have it, you see. And so it's more than that idea, and it was in the Valley of Tremere and all that, and that's not happening anymore. That was for those times, and that's all there is to it. And so again, but this is where, when this comes up, this idea, this reality comes up, I always suggest people, hey, look to Rebbe Zar and Paul, ask them if it's the real Rebbe Zar and Paul. You know, it's it's a very subtle, as we go through creation and all of this to recognize something, it's very subtle. I get it. And for the most part, our mind makes a determination, which is understandable. I know it's a toughie. I wrestle with my mind at times too, because we have the mind here. But then I step back and I just look at what makes sense, because life is an isness. It can't be anything else. And the interesting thing is that, yes, we had some conversations with his wife a while back last year, and Kelsey recorded these things and whatever. It was an interesting experience, and she's very aware. And her concern was that because Harold was attacking Alan and making him ill, almost trying to kill him on the real side, she could see this. Because he's still using the hue. The reptilians have the hue. This is where the boys step back. They saw all this. They see the process things go through. Everything, builds up to a particular, like any business, reaches its peak and maybe levels off for a while, then usually goes downhill. Most things do, because you have cause and effect here. It's very interesting how it works. And so what's being presented here with this isness, because you cannot really be convinced by it. Again, the new presentation is a reference. I've made it very real and making sense of what it is. It's not a teaching. It's not any of these things. It's simply a reference to this reality and to recognize your intent. And again, what I recognize with most of these people, they don't know what their intent is. They just decide something, like Joni, takes it over, decides this or that. I can see them creating it like, Mike Owens, The Way of Truth, and other things like that. Vesna was in that, and other people that I knew, and other things, and whatever it is. John Roger Hinkins, I remember Paul talked about him, his second initiate. He created Messiah, etc. And Paul said it's just all about the money. And again, all these things are fine. Everything is fine. Whatever people create, they have the right to create it. But the bigger view is, and this becomes the challenge and the journey and the risk to see through yourself, and that is that life decides. You see, life decides, and so you know what? I don't decide. Life decides. What I do is I write and talk about what I see. That's what I do from this invisible reality. This is what I do. And I really like that part. It's taken me a while to get there and to recognize, the whole playing field too, on the earth and whatever. It's a playing field. And so this is where we're at. This is where we are right now. And so it's not about right or wrong or who's right or wrong or this or that. Hey, everybody can have the rod of power. If that's what they want, you can have it. It's all yours. And it's really not about that. It's about recognizing this isness and deciding to stand real with the real guides. It's just really that simple. And so, but anybody can produce whatever they want. I'm just doing the best I can with what I see, and that is that in the physical sense, I see that it helps people to have a project like we're doing with the school, which we've talked about. We can choose anything, but we just happen to choose that. And, the verification comes through, if it's Ava or Kelsey or certain others that are involved, they see it. They see it on the real side. They see this verification. And so, again, it's doing something, and the boys back it. So, with what others have decided, and I understand his position of, deciding to do that, just like when Darwin and Harold, whatever they decided to do also. So it just gets to be very, very interesting. But I like the adventure and the recognition of this isness. And then trying to do something here. You see, the more real that you provide something to be and making sense with this reality as close as you can get to it, the more resistance there is here. This is why it's so easy. John Roger Hinkes is an example. If we look at it the business sense and in this world, he became very successful. I remember when he was in Darwin's days, when he was on the radio, and I was listening to the radio show, and I even called in and talked to him. He claimed he was the master, and he was, in his soul bodies, this and that, whatever. He just said what Paul said. All these people say the same thing. I don't. I don't say any of it, basically. I created all of it from what I see, not from what has been before me. Yes, it was so that I came through all this, and I use that as a reference, yes, but not as a reality, because the isness is what it is right now, this moment, not what it was 10 minutes ago, yesterday, or whatever. It has nothing to do with corresponding ideas that we call creation, etc. This is what's so cool about it. And yes, it is a struggle here. Many people that see it will struggle here. And that's just very real. They're just thinking it's all going to be a utopia. Well, that would be nice. Maybe that will be so. I have to wait and see. I decide certain things. I decide for this reality to come in, for things to be new. That's how I see it. And the boys back it, they do what they do on the real side. And this is where I chose the galactic experience and all that. That adventure, I like all that. I really do. Flash Gordon, James Bond, whatever. I like all that, And so I chose it, and they backed it because, again, they like the adventure too. They don't want to just sit around and be numb. They did the numb down days when they sat and meditated and were in caves for years and years and years. They did all that. They don't want to do that anymore. They want to live life, and they want to provide the opportunity to see others live life too. The biggest thing that this world accepts and agrees to is misunderstanding. And so it does take a little while to sort it out and to make sense of things. But when you really do sincerely recognize the isness, you'll see that it makes sense, and that what happens in creation is what happens, and these funny things are going to happen. And so again, you have semantics here. Yes, always semantics. And that's what I like about what I'm presenting the best I can, because it's a reference. It's not a teaching or whatever. And these things become encased in these ideas. And again, here's Alan. And again, he can have the rod of power. He's got to deal with it. His wife's very concerned at what's going on. But again, those days are gone. Days of masters and gurus are gone. The best part is we learn to stand real with each other and recognize this reality. Yes, everybody is this, you can use the idea equal. Yes, there's no this or that. We all have our own awareness. And respectfully, this is the best part. And things will be accordingly. Well, right now, most of the world is agreeing to the demise of the planet. That's very real. Of course, they won't admit to that. Most people keep thinking business is good, our life is good, we have a happy life, everybody's happy, we do what we want. Yeah, but you're still agreeing simply because things have been set up a particular, and they're in motion. They're already in motion, just like all the Wi-Fi that people agree to, using the microwaves. You can use other sources, but the microwaves, and so everybody seems to be fine with that. It's not working. It will only work so long, and then it goes the other way, which it already is. From the day they turned it on, it goes the other way. Yeah, so this is always very interesting, Charles, when these things are brought up. And for me, I'm fine with all of it. It's part of the adventure. It's part of the adventure to see, let's see who sees what it really is. That's the best part. Let's see who sees what it really is. And if they don't, they don't. That's the risk you take. I always like seeing things different, taking the risk, confronting things, etc., because it sparks something that's not seen there. Just like in Africa, when the natives want to, I forget what animals, maybe it's the tigers or something like that. What do? They go through the bush and they bring their brooms and they start hitting the bush, right? They all go through the bush and they don't know what's going to come out. And all of a sudden birds fly out. All of a sudden there's a tiger there, whatever they're after, snakes, whatever. But they do that, don't they? Surprise. So you got to kind of do that. You got to kind of beat the bush and see what comes out. You got to take the risk and do what you've never done before. Or you just keep agreeing. I don't expect people, and realistically, I really didn't expect too many people at all to agree with what I was presenting. It was way too much. Even when I started to get people to look at the books and that, especially with Ursula, the mermaid, and all these other things that I described, it's like, gee, what are people going to think about this? So I just went with it. And plus, again, I had a girlfriend the whole time I was married, but this was all, Revizor brought all these things in. I just was the experiencer of this. And so again, it all becomes very interesting to see how far people will go to see what makes sense overall. And the best part is that now you have the opportunity. It's not about the new presentation. Yes, just like the hospital, it's a necessity. It's part of it. But it's a reference to this isness, to recognize this. Then you see the whole picture. Then you start to see what's going on. It's so cool. But most people won't. They will be taken away with their literal mind and their personal ideas of things. If it's health, money, family, whatever, you can still have all these things. But do you want to meet your real family? Or do you want to just stay with the fake family? All of us are beings of light. We make the choice. When you recognize yourself, and everybody recognizes themselves in this isness, this reality, then you're with your real family, because it is that recognition, and you're no longer at the mercy of cause and effect creation. You decide how you're going to get there, you might say, or you don't, or you go along with your feelings and ideas as you always have. Yes, it's a lot to be indifferent and at the same time have that and what makes sense with this world. Yeah, so there's no way to really say it, but so getting back to the rod of power idea, it's rather humorous, really, because you know what? It's 1,000 years ago, Charles. It really is, because we're always new now. This is the best part. So again, you know what you can see and want to see, and a lot of people they don't want to see it. They really don't. And these people can see things. When we talk to Alan's wife, Heather, she could see things. She could see that Darwin and Peter Skelsky, they were the Pope and the King in last lifetimes, and they're playing the same roles. She could see that. Alan could see the roles that Darwin and Harold played, etc. You see? The boys were just trying to keep things going until I came along, because it was Paul and I that were to come in here. And I wasn't quite ready. That's why Paul stayed a little longer. I'm the child that he talked about that was being ready, but it wasn't about the time element. He said 15 years or something. No, he just said something, because people want something. They want to know what time it is or what's this or that. So you give them a reference. Otherwise, they don't know. Or somebody will make something up, what have you. It's not about that. It's when the is. That's what it's all about. Life decides. I didn't decide that moment when I stood in that reality. I didn't decide that. Life decided. I was willing to take it on. And boy, did I take a lot on. And yeah, it almost whacked me. Paul said I should have died. But I got back up again. I crawled back up. And here we are. Yeah, it's a lot. It's still a lot. But again, it's not for everybody. It can't be. Because again, it's too much. But those that are willing to take the risk and see this isness for what it really is, lucky you. Because through the lifetimes that we've been, it's been there, like the sun shining, but who recognizes it? So the rod of power, yes, it's 1,000 years ago, but hey, everybody can have the rod of power. This is a power world, and this is what it is. That's what it needed to start off with. Just like when you're going to build a house, you get the bulldozers and the tractors out there It's a lot of noise and a lot of diesel fuel in the air, and it's pushing the dirt around and digging the trenches with the backhoe and getting that foundation ready. But eventually, the slab is laid, the foundation is laid. That's the toughest part, you might say. After that, it's fun. I was a framer. We came in after the slabs were poured. It's very interesting. Again, and Paul laid the foundation. He did all the grunt work to lay something there as a reference. Doesn't mean that that's going to be eternal, but it was something that brought it in, and that was the power aspect. You might say he powered it in, which he did. He did a whole lot in a very short time. He really powered it in. But now it's better because that was laid. The slab is laid. Now we're having fun, framing it and putting the siding on and, doing the drywall and then decorating the inside or whatever. Again, even that idea is more so. Seeing Rebazar bulldoze even parts of the new presentation down simply because then there's a new building built. I've seen the boys do that. They take away the old ones and they do another one and another one and another one because it gets bigger and bigger. It gets bigger until eventually, just like the experience you shared in the beginning, guess what? It's all blown away because there's something coming that I've decided that's so cool, but not everybody's going to see it. We don't need any of this stuff anymore. We don't need the monetary system. We don't need any of these things because something has been decided like never before, but who will see it? And still, the cable is laid out there. Okay, it's underground. People can't see it. They got to figure out how to connect if they want to. That's the part that they have to do. But the cable has been laid, and they got to see it. And you got to be the risk taker to figure it out. Yeah, so it's not common. It's uncommon, unseen, and does not correspond with what being self-convinced is all about. It's a more so position, but it's so real, and so it's becoming more so available. And you're seeing it in that first experience. I see a little more of it all the time, and that is, even, just like the conference, the individual, and saw everybody there, and all of a sudden it was all blown away because, yes, there's a bigger picture that already is, and as it becomes so, it's going to be very, very interesting. And this is the universal community I'm talking about, but it's not going to be seen like a regular community. It's going to be very interesting. I'll have to see how it comes out too, but I see it, but at the same time, we'll see how the agreement of it is here, because it's going to be a big challenge for the world. And there's going to be a lot, just like when Noah, in the movie, Noah building the boat, most of the community is resisting. But then all of a sudden the big flood comes, and it's like, whoa, they weren't expecting that. So again, I suggest to prepare yourself. You need to be prepared so you can see it, or you'll miss it again. And it can be right in front of you, just like the sun shining, and you'll still miss it. Are you preparing yourself? Most people don't have the time. They're just too busy. So again, it's choice, isn't it? Yes, thank you for asking, Charles. So again, so much for the Rod of Power. It is a fun idea, though, isn't it? Ask Rebazar and Paul. They'll show you. They'll show you what's real. Yes, thank you.